Hi! Welcome to Let's Go Kickass today. I'm your host, Vicky Carter. This is a monthly podcast where I chat to inspirational people from the fields of music, adventure and culture. People who basically are really kicking ass and making their own rules in life. So if you want to feel empowered and inspired, you've come to the right place. In this episode, I chat to female musician and lead singer of the rock band Cyclist, Katy Jackson, about just how difficult it is as a female musician, especially in rock, but also as a woman working in the music industry, in whatever role that may be.
The owners were like, we don't like it, we don't think women belong in rock. So they were like, we're going to cancel all future bookings which contain women.
I also speak to cyclist, environmentalist and author Anna Hughes about her flight-free campaign, her nomadic lifestyle on a houseboat, and why we should be spending time outside.
Spend some time being outdoors and absorbing the nature that we find ourselves surrounded by. It's so good for your soul, you know, and we can't separate ourselves from nature. We are nature.
And finally, I speak to writer and performance artist Millicent Binks about her interesting experiment, Introductions Incognito, and dating life in London.
I mean, you probably beat yourself up and think, why don't they like me? You know, it can drive you crazy. You can think, God, I'm too good for you anyway. You know what? You know, it's just driving me mad. But it's them.
First up is the lead singer of Tigress, Katy Jackson, where she talks about the struggles she faces being a female in the music industry and highlights the differences we need to make to create a change. What inspired you to become a musician?
I've always grown up around music. My dad is a drummer, so when I was a kid he was like teaching me how to clap in time and singing along to songs and stuff like that. So you know, like he's been one of my big inspirations in music and getting into it. And then, you know, just like most people, you grow up around music, you start to develop your own taste, and then, I don't know, you kind of find stuff that emotionally, I don't know, you cling on to, and then you just carry it with you, don't you, really, throughout life. And yeah, I guess just everyday life, all that kind of stuff, it just helps you get through it. And that's just, I don't know, I guess that's one of the reasons why I got into it in the first place. Angsty teenager and all that.
So you front a male-dominated band. What's that like?
So, well, within my band, it's really nice because I've always worked with those boys and we are all best friends. So within our little clique, it's really nice because they just see me as one of the guys. But then outside of our little clique, it's not so easy.
Yeah. Have you faced any prejudice for not only fronting a band but also being a female musician?
Yeah, so regularly is the answer. Yeah, so I think it was like maybe 2 weeks ago we got an email that was like from our booking agent that said, we're looking for bands to support another band, which is what we normally get, but on this one it was like, do not want female fronted bands. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a new one. I hadn't seen that one before. Previously to that, we've had things like loads of stuff along the lines of booking agents or promoters or record labels all saying, like, we love what you do, but we've already got one female act on our roster. There's not room for another one. Obviously, they've got loads of males, like, you know, 20, maybe 30 on their roster, but obviously only one is enough. And then, yeah, a few weeks back, I did a tweet because I thought I've got to share this email that was from a radio station, and they just said, like the song, but listening to you against like other females, we've actually thought maybe you're not strong enough as a female. And it was kind of like, okay, so now the reasons are always shifting, but it always comes back to the fact that, I don't know, you're a female, so therefore XYZ. So yeah, it's pretty difficult, but I feel like when I talk to friends within the industry who are females doing, you know, like females who are booking agents or females who are promoters, they face similar problems, you know, where it will be like their emails won't get put to the top of the pile, they get put to the bottom. People won't reply to them, but they will reply to their male counterparts who are, you know, equally as qualified as them, but they won't get replies, or, you know, they'll just find it really hard to get their foot in the door.
How does that make you feel, that you're always put in a box because of your gender and not because of your music?
Is so frustrating, because, you know, if people don't like our music, that's totally fine, you know, because everybody is entitled to their musical tastes, and if it's not your thing, cool, whatever. But, you know, gender is something that you don't decide, you're just born, and that is that, and you like what you like. I like rock music. Just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't do it. Just because I'm a girl singing in rock doesn't mean I'm less worthy than a male singing rock. There's also a venue that have in the Midlands, I can't remember which one, but it's banned all female fronted rock acts. Yeah.
Why?
Ban them. So their reason was, we don't like it and neither do our customers.
I'm shocked. So that is their like logo on their.
So they
their
had
slogan.
they had a few female fronted bands. I don't even like that term, because it's like, they're just bands, right? Bands that feature women, whatever. And the owners were like, we don't like it, we don't think women belong in rock. So they were like, we're going to cancel all future bookings which contain women fronting these bands, and we're not going to book any in the future. And yeah, there's this, I mean, yeah, it's all online, like them talking about it, and, you know, bands being like, this is crazy. Like there's female fronted bands that could sell out their venue in a heartbeat, and they're like, no, don't want it because we don't like it.
That is
Mental.
crazy. How can we change this way of thinking? I mean, do we start from the top? I mean, I feel like there's so many elements to it as well, and we need to change the thinking of women to get more of them to be musicians.
Yeah, so I think that's completely right. So a lot more women need to feel comfortable in rock, but also I think a lot of it comes from the industry. So people, like the people who are the booking agents and the like the PR agencies and the record labels, they need to be more open to taking on female acts, so that there are a much wider range of people across their rosters, because then, you know, there's more in the pool, there's more for people to choose from, because then, you know, okay, if it is a case of musical taste, that's great, there's somebody else who might be doing something that you like, but at the moment, because not many are coming through industry wise, they get stopped before they even start. It's a problem, because there's not many in the first place. So I think it needs to be an industry thing, but a lot of the time we are just seen as gimmicks. We're like a quota, we've already got one, can't have another one, so that needs to completely change. And then I think there will be a lot more coming through, because there's so many talented people that can do amazing jobs, but they're just not given that shot because of that fact. So because everyone's like, can't possibly have more than one. So if that was to stop, then more would come through, and then it would be more normalised, and then people maybe wouldn't be so shocked about it, or it wouldn't be seen as a gimmick, because there would be a lot more female fronted bands.
Not entirely in rock as well, but specifically the whole music industry. I mean, Lily Allen, she tweeted last year highlighting Wireless Festival, just a few female acts was quite shocking. How can we change the lineup in festivals and make it more equal?
I looked through a bunch of rock festivals, and I knew it was bad, but until I started looking through all the posters, I didn't actually realise how bad it was. So it'll be like, there'll be two female, not necessarily like fronted, like a band, say with like a female bass player, and there'll be like two females, full stop, over the whole festival that are on a stage. And I just thought, it's absolutely mental. And I've spoken to people about it, and they're quite cagey about it. I think they all know it goes on, but nobody wants to call people out. Nobody wants to like say anything. I guess it's easier, and they worry about their positions in the music industry because it's really fickle. So they're like, oh, don't say anything because they'll jeopardise my job.
Exactly, there'll be the troubled loud bands.
Exactly, yeah. But then obviously if nobody talks about it, then nothing changes. But yeah, festivals is bad. It's really bad.
PRS have organised a campaign. They've liaised with, well, they've called a company called Key Change, where they've liaised with 100 festivals all across the world to help 50-50 in balance in lineups by 2020. Do you think this is a step in the right direction, or should we be doing a whole lot more?
Well, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Any steps, full stop, are good. I just think that we need to stop pretending that it's not happening. And it does need to be the people that work in the industry that need to stop pretending that it doesn't happen. You know, like, they just need to be honest with themselves and say, like, okay, hands up, I have completely shunned female-fronted bands because I don't think they're as good as male-fronted bands. They just need to own up to it, really, like, be more honest about it, and then, I don't know, just start more discussions and start movements happening rather than nobody saying anything, nobody doing anything. So yeah, PRS doing something, that's really good, because PRS they're massive, obviously, because they collect everyone's royalties. But it needs to be more. It needs to be actively changed. Like, festival promoters need to have not a quota that says, oh, we can only have 1 or 2 females. It needs to be, no, we have a quota that needs to be half and half, like PRS are trying to do.
Yeah. And finally, if there was a fellow musician who was female and facing some prejudice in the music industry, what advice would you give to them?
Oh, it's difficult because, you know, like, I'm still working through it and trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to move forward with it. But the thing that I realised the most when I tweeted on International Women's Day was just how many people are really supportive of what I was saying. So I guess it would be just don't keep quiet about it. You've got to talk about it, and you've got to keep trying to break open doors, because they're not going to open easily. But as soon as I spoke out about it, loads of people were like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I can't believe it's still going on. You know, and it's genuinely not the public. The public don't care what music they listen to as long as it's good. So it's the people behind the computers, behind the desks, that are making decisions as to what you want to listen to. So it's almost advice to, like, an audience member. So as an audience member, you need to be listening to a lot of female fronted bands, because if female fronted bands on Spotify, all their stats go up through the roof, people are going to go, oh, people do want to hear females in rock. So it's things like that. Like, make sure you support those kind of women in music, you know, buy their records, all that kind of stuff, to make them more popular, to show the industry people that there is a place for them.
Thanks to Katy Jackson for chatting to me there. As you heard in the interview, she says we need to stop pretending it's not happening. So if you experience everyday sexism in your workplace, or have done, then do reach out and tell someone, and hopefully we can support each other and make that change. Next up is cyclist, author and environmentalist Anna Hughes. She inspires me to live on a houseboat and have a freelance way of life. I'm delighted to be joined by Anna Hughes, environmentalist, cyclist and author. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Vicky. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I'm so happy right now to be on your houseboat. You've given me a little tour of the place, and I am inspired. Already you've inspired me to live this nomadic life, but also greener life, and that's one of the main reasons why I've come here to speak to you today, talking about the elephant in the room, climate change. Why is it so important for you to talk about it?
Well, actually, talking about climate change is one of the ways that we're going to address the problem. So I think one of the reasons why we haven't taken action so far or recently is because we just don't talk about it. So it's not part of people's daily routines to think about their effect on the planet, and it's not part of, therefore, politicians' manifestos and policies, because it seems that it's kind of down the agenda of the public interest, whereas it should be number one. You know, this is the thing that we all really need to be taking a notice of. Climate change affects everybody and everything, and it's something that we desperately need to address.
That's the thing. I mean, in 20 years' time, people could still be arguing about issues and topics in society, but we might not even have a planet to live in anymore. So right. There we go.
Exactly. And it's not just the planet. It is looking at kind of the wider effect on society. So we're going to have climate refugees. We're going to have disputes over the fact that there's not going to be enough food. We're going to have difficult weather conditions, and this is all going to affect society. You know, it's going to completely change the way we interact with each other. So we just have to, we still have time. We have to address it now. We have to overhaul the way we live, and, you know, and for our future, for our society's future.
So what changes have you made in your life, and what changes should society do?
So I try as hard as I can to reduce my carbon footprint. And that involves things like not having a car. So I ride my bike everywhere, or take the train if I need to go further, long distance. I don't fly, which is a massive part of it, because that is pretty much the single most heavy part of your carbon footprint. If you do fly, that can really put a massive impact on your environmental credentials. I'm vegan, which is also a massive thing, and I have a real kind of low impact lifestyle in general, in terms of I'm not really a consumer. Like, most of my clothes come from charity shops. I really try to not use very much water. So for example, I don't wash my hair very often, like once a month or something like that. And I mean, it really does help actually living on this boat, because it's such a small space, and because I can then be self-contained. So I generate all my own electricity with a solar panel, and I guess going back to nature style of life, which is really cool. Obviously that's not going to be for everyone, but as a result, I feel that I tread really lightly on the earth.
No, it is incredible to be here. I mean, everything's got its beautiful places. You've got your seeds and your grains in glass bottles, and you've got your utensils hanging out, and, you know, like cute tiles, all different colours. Everything's got its small place, you know, everything's perfect, and you've got the fire in the corner. And I can see why, if everyone got this opportunity to be shown how to live this kind of lifestyle, then we could make drastic changes. But what about river congestion then?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely it's not the answer for everybody to live on a riverboat, because there's not enough space. Already in the five and a bit years I've lived on the river, I think boating numbers have doubled, you know. So yeah, it's definitely an attractive lifestyle in some ways, but I don't think it's the answer for everybody to do, and it wouldn't suit everyone anyway, because it's really hard work. You know, I do generate my own electricity, which means I can't have, I don't have mains, so it's all a 12-volt system. So I can't use a hairdryer, I can't use a food processor. You know, when I'm making my own bread, I have to knead it by hand, and when I'm making cakes and stuff, I have to mix them by hand, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of maintenance, and luckily I'm pretty handy, so I do it mostly myself. But yeah, it's hard work, and that's not going to be for everybody.
I guess the attractions are, as well as it being so zen and beautiful with the views of the river, but you also have the opportunity to move wherever you like. I mean, where have you lived across London, and what have your neighbours been like?
Well, yeah, that is such a brilliant part of it, because especially within London, I feel like I'm always in the countryside, even when I'm in central London, and I just love that. So there are certain places that I've moored, maybe in Camden or King's Cross or Angel, and you are literally a stone's throw away from a massive thoroughfare, and you're kind of sunk into the little cutting, and it's so peaceful and so quiet. And then you can just 5 minutes walk up the road, you're in wherever you need to be, and it's such a lovely view of London, and a really unique one as well. And on my boat I have done a lot of travelling between Hertfordshire and London. So I'm moored on the River Lee right now, which goes all the way from Limehouse, where it reaches the Thames, all the way up through East London, Hackney, Tottenham, Enfield, and then out into Hertfordshire, up to Cheshunt, Broxbourne, and then eventually it finishes at Hertford. And so I've done that stretch a lot, up and down. And then a couple of years ago, I went all the way out to Bristol. So wow. That was kind of my long distance journey, which was 2 weeks, constant cruising every day all the way to Bristol. And that was a really fun journey. Like I saw loads of the countryside, and it was very beautiful. And really exciting as well, just to kind of move house without moving house.
That's wonderful. I mean, I'm a nomadic person. I'm used to moving a lot, so this just excites me. But how can you do this with work? I mean, how does it balance your lifestyle?
So I'm freelance, and so moving up and down within London's fine because I can always get on a train and get to wherever I need to. And when I moved to Bristol, I would just continue working freelance, mostly from my boat. So I'm a cycling instructor, and I currently work in London, and I was temporarily working in Bristol. And I'm also an author and a writer, and I run a campaign at the moment. So all of those things are just things I can do from home. So it really doesn't matter where I am, and I can just move around and find inspiration from whichever spot I pick. So it's kind of a complementary way. It complements my lifestyle perfectly.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So let's talk more about the campaign that you're doing, Flight Free. What are you hoping to achieve with that?
So it's called Flight Free 2020, and the idea is that people pledge not to fly next year as long as 100,000 other people also make the pledge. So we're looking at trying to encourage people to take individual action on climate change. It's clear that we need to take individual action and reduce the amount we fly. But lots of people might say, well, what good is it me stopping flying or flying less if everybody else continues to fly just as much as normal or as usual? So this says, okay, you only have to do it if 100,000 other people do it. So you're part of a collective movement. You're part of a huge number of people who are taking this action. So it's not just you acting alone. It's lots of people acting together to make a difference. And if you do things in numbers like that, that's when you can start to get the attention of the government, get the attention of industry. This campaign is inspired by a campaign that started in Sweden last year, and not directly as a result of that campaign, but generally as part of the whole kind of flying less movement in Sweden. Flight bookings are down, rail bookings are up. There's a debate in Parliament about taxing aviation more fairly and making sustainable travel choices easier and more attractive and cheaper and more affordable. And that's something that I just think we desperately need here. So at the moment, flying is a default for lots of people when they want to go on a holiday because it's quick and it's cheap. And it's not surprising that that's how people get around. If you want to go to Spain and you only have a week's holiday, you're going to get on a flight. But what I hope to achieve with the campaign is to try and inspire people to think about it differently. So, hey, challenge yourself. It's just a year off. Challenge yourself to either go somewhere else for your holiday that you can reach a little bit easier without getting on a flight, or take a train to Spain, which is completely possible. It takes longer, but the train journey becomes part of the holiday. You know, it's incredible watching the landscape just change from England to France, and then you see it become more arid as you make your way further south and you go through the Pyrenees, and oh my goodness, it's absolutely amazing. That's part of the experience. You still get your beach, you still get your lovely resort in Spain, but it's just a different method of getting there. And the difficulty is, though, it is more expensive to do that. So something else that we're trying to achieve with the campaign is, right, come on government, make it easier for people to make these choices, make it cheaper, make the alternative options more attractive, and that's the way we're going to feed into the conversation, and that's hopefully something that can really make a positive impact on this climate crisis.
I think so. I agree with that. I mean, I think if the government makes it easier for people and harder for them to obtain, cheap tickets on Ryanair or EasyJet, then we can work together, definitely. One of the things you've mentioned, you are an avid cyclist and a traveller. You've cycled 4,000 miles around the English coast and also from Land's End to John O'Groats. Yeah. What inspired you to take up that challenge?
So the 4,000 miles around the coast, that's the coast of the whole of Britain, England, Scotland and Wales.
Crikey.
And the motivation for that was because I wanted to do an epic journey, an incredible adventure, but as an environmentalist, of course, we've just said it, I don't fly. So I didn't want to kind of pack up my bike, put it on a plane, fly to, I don't know, Laos or whatever it is, Vietnam or whatever it is, and then go cycling on a holiday and then come back again. I wanted to explore the place I live, especially because I didn't really know much about Britain at that point. I journeyed around a little bit, but I thought I wanted to go on this epic quest and discover really what my country is made of. And I had the most amazing time, and I explored every single corner of Britain, and I found some really surprising things and some some beautiful places. I couldn't even comprehend how beautiful they were, and they were only so close to where I live, you know. It was a journey of discovery, partly about Britain and partly about myself, because of course you can't cycle 4,000 miles without learning something about yourself. So yeah, it was a real life-changing journey, and I know that sounds really cheesy, but it did kind of change what I decided I would then do with my life, especially because I wrote about it afterwards, wrote a book, so that, you know, I became an author, and I've written 2 books since, so that it really kind of informed sort of what made me tick and the things I would do later on after that.
No, I 100% agree. Every time I go away and travel somewhere, even if it's just for a short period of time, I feel that moments of, you know, self-reflection and connection with nature as well is incredible. I mean, I went to Cornwall in February and I was surfing, and, you know, it's freezing that time of year, but I had the best time. Yeah. Not only did you cycle, but you also sailed around the coast as well. So how did those 2 experiences differ?
Yeah, I did sail, and that was an expedition with a company called Round Britain Experience. So it wasn't just me, there was a crew of us, and I hadn't done sailing before, so it was a training course, essentially. A 3-month training course, sail around Britain, and in the process learn how to sail. So I wanted to do it because after my cycle ride, I had just fallen in love with Britain, especially the coastline, and I thought, right, I'm going to do the same journey but just from the outside in. And I was really excited about it and thought it would be amazing. And in the end, I kind of hated it.
No.
I know, it was just so much harder than I thought it would be. Partly because I was really seasick. And everyone said to me, oh, it'll go away. And it never did. 3 months, every day, sick. I couldn't believe it. In the end, I just learned how to deal with it, basically. So it was really tough. Oh my goodness, it was so draining, and there were several points when I just thought, why am I doing this, and why am I still being sick, and I just want to go home and everything else. So that was a bit of a shame, but equally it was an incredible experience and one I will never forget, and I'm really glad I did it because I learned how to sail, and that was phenomenal. It's always good learning new things and kind of understanding a different skill and trade. And now, you know, I listen to stories of people going on ocean voyages, and I know something of what they're talking about. And also the amount of wildlife I encountered was really brilliant. So there were puffins. Oh my God, I love puffins. They're so funny. They're so amazing. And no sooner have you looked at it than it's dived and gone. So we had this little joke on board. Like we'd call each other over. Oh, by the time we got there, oh, it's gone. Puffin, nothing. Ha ha ha. And guillemots as well, just these little funny little tiny little birds, and they flap their wings so fast, and I just loved them. And gannets, and seals and dolphins, and we saw killer whales as well, which I couldn't believe. So yeah, all of that was so unique. You know, you're not going to see that unless you go to sea. So yeah, I was really pleased to do that.
Gorgeous. I mean, obviously you've been saying how much you were sick, but you can really see the positive through it. It's incredible. Yeah. And you've already mentioned that you're an author and you give motivational talks as well. Yeah. Why is it important to encourage people to get outside? I know that you're a champion for that for Ordnance Survey as well.
Yeah, so being outside is beneficial in so many ways, and yeah, I do give talks, and I try to encourage people to explore near where they live, and I try to encourage people to explore in an active way as well. So getting out, walking, cycling, anything you can do. So working with Ordnance Survey is really, I think it's a really good scheme they're running. So there are lots of Get Outside champions, of which I'm one, and we all kind of share our experiences of going outside and living outdoors lives, and trying to encourage others to do so. Mostly because being outdoors it's really good for your health, both your physical health and your mental health. So, I mean, I find that living on the boat, I just, like you said, it is a really zen thing to do, and it's very calming just being among nature. And we can very easily remove ourselves from that, and the stresses of modern life come in and we feel completely hectic and overwhelmed by everything and the noise and the traffic and all this kind of stuff. But if you just take a step back from that and find a little green corridor for whichever city you live in, and or anything like that, and spend some time being outdoors and absorbing the nature that we find ourselves surrounded by, it's so good for your soul, you know. And we can't separate ourselves from nature. We are nature, you know. We rely on it for our livelihoods, for our survival, and we can't compartmentalize it. We are part of nature, and this isn't talking about this isn't being a hippie, you know. This isn't kind of that tree hugging picture. It's just appreciating that, looking at something that's beautiful in a natural way, in its natural environment, it makes you happy, you know.
Both inside and out, I'd say, really.
Yeah.
For those people who find it hard to keep fit and be active and keep motivated to do so, what words of encouragement would you give them?
Just take it one day at a time, I would say. So pick something that you enjoy, pick something that you find easy but that's got a little bit of challenge to it, and just do it. And don't beat yourself up if you don't do it every day, but you know, something like taking a walk at your lunch hour or whatever fits with your daily routine, you know, a couple of times a week. Just get out, and you'll find that if you set yourself challenges or targets that are unattainable, then you're never going to stick with them, you know. Pick something that is going to fit within your lifestyle and be easy for you to attain, and you'll just feel amazing when you get there. And it can be anything, you know. If you want to start being a bit more active in your journey to work or something like that, then just give it a go once a week, whatever it is. But yeah, the important thing is, don't beat yourself up. Pick something that's just going to make you feel good.
Wise words from Anna Hughes there, to pick something attainable by making those small steps to create a more active lifestyle. Also, if you want to sign up to the Flight Free campaign, do make sure to check it out on its website, flightfree.co.uk. Last but not least is a writer and performance artist, Millicent Binks, who talks about her experiences of creating over-exaggerated traits as characters in the dating world, her experiment of introductions incognito, and also we talk about self-worth when it comes to dating and why some people just continue to date assholes, myself included. So what really intrigued me was that you kind of collected these 5 dating personas or characters, as it were, and then you created this own experiment where you went out and see if men and how they reacted to each one. Would you mind telling us what inspired you to do this experiment and what it's called?
Okay, so my experiment is called Introductions Incognito, and it all started when I had been single for about 5 years, and people and my friends were saying things like, oh, maybe, you know, you're a bit too loose, or, you know, maybe you should be a bit more, maybe, you know, he's not as clever as you, so he doesn't like the fact that you're more intelligent, or, you know, he's intimidated by this or that. And I kind of thought, these theories are interesting. And one of my friends gave me a book called Men Love Bitches. And it was really funny. And I just imagined if there was a woman who was quite socially inept and she took it really seriously and just went out and was like really horrible. And I thought, wow, that would make such a funny character to write about. And then I thought about, well, where does this kind of bitch stereotype come from? You think about the femme fatales in Hollywood. And then I thought about other Hollywood female stock characters, they're called. And there's obviously the gold digger, and then there's there's bimbos, there isn't so many of the intellectual ones in Hollywood, but I had the 1930s, 40s, 50s Hollywood, because I was looking at mid-20th century films. But I did find one where one of the women was in a film called Strange Impersonation, and she was a really brilliant scientist. So I got that one from there.
What was the reaction to each person? I mean, how did people react to that? I read it a little bit into it, and you were like pinching people's bums.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It's an experiment about people, so it's not a scientific research, or they're never going to all react in a certain way. But it was fun to document and to kind of interview the men about these subjects, and because I'd always throw into the conversation, oh, you know, what do you think that would you date a really oversexed woman? Would you see her as girlfriend material? That was mainly the experiment, to find what men in 2019 thought was girlfriend material, and how outdated are these kind of conventional codes. The best reactions, the funniest I've had has actually been with the pregnant women I've been going out. So I got a silicone actor's 8-month pregnant belly, so it looks very realistic, and it's when you touch it, it feels, I can show it somewhere in the room. I can show you it.
We're lying very comfortable on Millicent's bed right now.
Are.
That's why. Very cozy.
It's even got like a little indent for a little belly button, so if you wear a tight dress, you can kind of. Yeah, I know. It's strange, but the thing is, it's a little bit cold, so I wear, obviously a kind of tight dress over it, so you can see quite a little bit sexy. I've had so many great one-liners. I mean, I had one. I normally start the conversation off with, we just get normal chatting, and then I'll say, I'm feeling a bit down because I'm not able to date because obviously I'm pregnant, and it's really hard to meet guys to date when I'm pregnant. I don't want to wait till I've had a baby, and I'm single, obviously, and I'd say, would you date a pregnant woman? And they have come out with all kinds of different things. Like one guy said, well, love, it's hard because I guess preggers can't be choosers. I know, seriously, I was like, yes, thank you so much, that's a really good line. And then somebody else said, oh, the father would either have to be a gay sperm donor, like a gay best friend sperm donor, or dead, so that they'd be out of the picture completely.
Oh my gosh.
Like, wow.
Oh, crikey. Which one was the most fun for you to play?
The most fun, it was either the Jezebel, because you could be really silly. And I'd always be with friends when I did this, so it's more safe, and always in public. People are like, oh, is it dangerous? I'm like, no, not at all. It's always just in public where people are socialising in that kind of flirtatious, situations and atmospheres. The bitch was a little bit hard because you kind of have to be a bit... I was obviously being mean and insulting guys and stuff to see if they still liked me, even if I was horrible, which is really funny. I think, Jezebel, and also the androgynous one, because I'm quite girly in real life, so dressing as a guy with braces, and I try to have a nod to, say, Marlene Dietrich a little bit by wearing more vintage but still modern looking kind of clothes. It was just fun dressing like that because it's so different for me, and I didn't really have to wear any makeup, and I'd always buy a guy a drink because it was the more masculine thing to do, and that was quite nice because I think some guys said, oh, I've never even been bought a drink by a girl before. Well, for the first one.
Yeah, it's changing that stereotype.
Yeah.
Why do you think men go for women that are a certain way or look a certain way?
If I look at some of my male friends, they sometimes are completely different to the last. And I think maybe it's a novelty thing. So once they're used to having this type of woman, they're like, oh, well, next time I'm going to try something completely different, or I've never had this before. I guess if I look at myself, I used to have a specific taste, like in my early 20s, certain type. And then that really changed. Then I went for a phase where I was going out with much, much, much older guys, 20 years or so older. And then I got completely bored of that.
How do you feel if women cater to dumbing themselves down or biting their tongue or dyeing their hair for a certain colour to appeal to a certain man?
I don't know, because I guess I've done it. I did a few years blonde. I'm naturally brown just because I felt I felt like I felt at the time, I felt like I turned more heads and things when I was blonde. I don't know why, but...
No, same with me. I get more work, but also more attention from people in the street or dating people. Yeah, because I've dyed my hair blonde.
Amazing. So it's because you're a little... You're naturally kind of
naturally dark, dark brunette.
Dark blonde. Yeah. Oh, wow. Dark brunette. Wow. Yeah, no, it looks really natural on you. Thanks. So, I mean, I've done it. I've been there, and I remember always when I've been through a breakup or something's happened, I've wanted to change my look because it's made me feel like a new person. I mean, it's that thing of that mystical thing called chemistry. Like, you can't ever really change the chemistry you have with a guy, even if you act more like a bitch, or you act more, you know, like, I don't know, certain way. Or I think this mystical thing called chemistry overrides all the little things that you can do to change yourself. But this project was a way of interviewing men on how society has maybe changed. I'm going to do some experiments in New York as well, where I go and chat to people there.
Fantastic.
And possibly some other places, but I think it might have to be English speaking, because I can't have a really good in-depth conversation in another language. I don't know, so because I did try and do a little bit in Cuba when I was in Cuba, and I can't speak Spanish. It didn't really work so well there.
How would you feel if a member of society said, oh, you're too much for men, you need to downsize yourself in a certain way?
I would say don't listen, because there is always someone out there for everybody, really. And if you want it badly enough, and you really, really search and meet as many people as you possibly can, you will find people that you couldn't even imagine existed. I mean, I think the reason I was single for so long is because I'm very picky, and the guy that I imagined for myself, I just thought, this guy can't possibly exist. Then I did find someone who kind of complemented all these things in a way that I didn't. You know, when you meet new people, it really makes you think, God, the variety of opinions and it's this mysterious thing called chemistry again. You don't really have to change. You just have to maybe change the way that you're meeting people, rather than change yourself.
And the 5 years that you were single, do you have any horror dating stories that you just want to not remember, really? Because dating in London is a chessboard.
Oh, it is a chessboard, and you can kind of, you know, sometimes you think, oh my God, I am never online dating again after this date. I mean, I never had one that was particularly, you know, upset me or made me cry or was horrible, but I remember just being so disappointed because the person you imagined online in the picture just was so different in real life. And it's because it was just a picture and some text. I think in future apps should have a video of the person actually talking, and so you could get more of a vibe of who they are. But I remember one guy just being so different to how I imagined, and there was some pictures of him building some houses in was it the Calais jungle? He was he was volunteering there, and he looked kind of like a guy that I would quite fancy. Then he kind of turned up and was just about 2 feet shorter than I thought he was going to be, and sort of he was quite like camp and sort of very, 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 very boyish and childish, not the kind of person I'd envisaged at all. And I was kind of sitting there, you know, we had a laugh, we had, you know, some drinks and had some food and stuff, but you kind of think, oh God, I just wasted like 2 hours of my life, you know. Other horror stories I've had is just, you know, letting guys be horrible to me, letting guys be really horrible. You know, they'll call you once a month or something just to come round and, you know, for a roll under the sheets, and then I kind of got addicted to them being mean or something, or it was just they give you crumbs and you're kind of, oh my God, a crumb. You know, they said that, you know, they'd take me for a drink, and I have no, that was my lowest, is when
Unfortunately, a lot of women experience that and are dating people like that now. What would you say to them, your message to get out of that, like, Hansel and Gretel situation?
Yeah, have to realise your worth, and you may really, really fancy this guy might really excite you and you might really fancy them, but you know, once you meet the right guy or the nice guy, you'll look back and think, what a scumbag. You know, they don't deserve you, and they don't. I mean, you probably beat yourself up and think, why don't they like me? You know, it can drive you crazy. You could think, God, I'm too good for you anyway. You know what? You know, it's just driving me mad. But it's them. They're just scumbags, basically. And then you meet a really nice one, and you're like, Jesus. But then sometimes I think when you've been with really, really mean guys, it does make you appreciate a nice guy more. So I'm happy. I don't have any regrets. I'm happy I had some really awful, awful men, because I can now really, really appreciate my lovely boyfriend.
I'm interested to see where Millicent's project takes her and who else she will become. Definitely one to watch. Well, thanks for listening to the 4th episode of Let's Go Kickass today, and to all of my fabulous guests. Feel free to rate, subscribe and share the love. You're welcome to follow my Twitter and Instagram for this podcast as well. It's @GoKickassToday. I'm Vicky Carter, and keep kicking ass.